Hey everybody, what's up? I wanted to do something different for the channel, and I love to watch movies and talk about the movies very much. So, welcome to the first movie review of the channel. This is gonna be fun. Robocop, 1987, directed by Paul Verhoeven. The story is about a cop called Alex Murphy, played by Peter Weller, who is murdered in a mission against a crime, and he is resurrected as Robocop, a product against a crime created by OCP. This movie is ultimately my favorite movie of all time, and I'm going to explain why through this review. But one of the things that are so strong about Robocop is the social satire. This movie has become a very iconic classic because of the social satire. The social satire about the corporate greed and the corruption and this whole thing of a human nature. And it's really fun to see how far somebody can go to keep their level in the hierarchy of a company. So this whole thing of a corporate greed and corruption is a very very strong social satire in this movie. And story wise, the strongest part of the movie is probably the emotion, because when Alex Murphy wakes up as a Robocop, he doesn't know who he is. His memory has been erased, and eventually, when he starts getting rid of a crime, he starts to get his memories back, and eventually he knows who he is, and the story becomes a revenge story, and it's quite interesting. There's a gang of criminals that are terrorizing Detroit, and the Detroit is corrupt by crime and violence and a lot of bad shit. And OCP, Omni Consumer Products, is trying to get rid of the crime and create a new city called Delta City. And this movie has amazing action sequences. It's masterfully directed by Paul Verhoeven, who is ultimately one of my favorite directors of all time. I love most of the movies he made: Robocop, Total Recall, Starship Troopers, The Hollow Man, including Showgirls, that is a very underrated movie. And Robocop is definitely his ultimate masterpiece. He directed the movie masterfully, and the effects are pretty impressive, especially considered for a 1987 movie that there was no CGI at the time. So everything was very, let's say, handcrafted and a practical effect. And that a big robot, iconic robot, Ed 209, he was created through stop motion. There was no CGI at that time, and there are so many interesting things about this movie that I could spend the whole day talking about it. This is ultimately my favorite movie of all time. It was such an important movie in my life. It still is. I watched this movie for the first time when I was 6 or 7 years old, even though it's not a movie for kids. And I fell in love with it immediately. I did have another DVD of this movie, and I remember starting to watch the behind the scenes and the interviews with the crew through the DVD of this movie, and eventually that started my passion for filmmaking and loving movies or pop culture in general. And there are so many iconic and memorable scenes. For example, the meeting with Ed 209 that it goes incredibly wrong, and the data shows the social satire that I was talking about. The the workers of the company, they're not worried about the guy who just died brutally by a giant machine. They're worried about the consequences that it could bring to the company, and the losses, the money, and also all of the action sequences involving Robocop. when he starts fighting crime for the first time, and the gas station scene. The gas station scene is probably my favorite scene in the movie. That was an actual explosion, and there's even a story. The fire department wanted to uh, avoid the distribution, the release of the movie, because the movie was bringing a little of a hard work for the firefighters, just for the sake of the action sequences. But luckily, this didn't happen. The movie was released, and this movie is very, very violent, just like any other Paul Verhoeven's movie, and everything is so great about it. It's a perfect movie, and it does have a little of a dark humor. Sometimes the violence is so exaggerated that it becomes funny, and the soundtrack of this movie is a masterpiece. And it's a movie that probably most of you have watched, but I think it was a great movie to pick up because it's my favorite movie of all time. I honestly cannot find negatives about this movie. Everything works about it. The pacing is great. The movie is actually kind of short. It barely has 1 hour and 30 minutes, so the pacing of the movie is pretty good. And I really like to see how the movie tries to show so many things in a shorter period of time, considerably, and it works very, very, very well in every single one of them. The corporate greed, like I said, the action sequences, a man in a machine trying to find his humanity, and I really love when Alex Murphy goes to his old house that is empty, abandoned, and he starts to regain his memories, and he starts to find out who he is, and he starts going after the guys who killed him, and other iconic scenes. For example, the cocaine factory. The cocaine factory actually might be my favorite scene. It's just perfect, and the scene with Ed Chonine destroying Robocop. Everything works about this movie. Everything is masterfully directed, and this movie is perfect. And I'm not saying this movie is perfect because it's my favorite movie of all time. I genuinely think this movie is a masterpiece. It's a classic. If you never watched Robocop 1987, definitely check it out because it's a masterpiece. It's a classic, and it's just a great film. And my rating for this movie is definitely a 10 out of 10. It's just perfect. This movie is the movie of my life, the most important movie in my life. The movie itself is a masterpiece for what it is, but it's the most important movie in my life. The movie that has started my passion for movies and my whole interest for filmmaking behind the scenes. And it's definitely a classic that if you haven't watched it, watch again. And if you haven't, please do yourself this favor and check it out. And I think that's it, guys. That was my first movie review. I know it's not that good. I still have to improve a lot. But thanks for watching. Have a good day.